Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the PDRS channel for another track guide, where today we look at the ARCA series at Myrtle Beach Speedway. The best way to characterize this track is that it is a less is more style of racetrack, where the more that you underdrive the car, the better that you're going to do in your races. If you really try to fire it down lap after lap down into the corners, chances are the car is going to get too loose, it's going to come around on you, and you're going to become really good friends with those outside walls, and I don't want that to happen to you. So let's not waste any time today. We'll go ahead and take a look at this track map. And this is one of those tracks that you drive turns 1 and 2 completely different than how you drive 3 and 4. So if you take a look at the front stretch here, you see it's kind of this weird shape. It's not like a miniature D-shaped oval. If you look coming out of turn 4, you can see that it's kind of straight as you get near the start-finish line, and then right as you start to cross the start-finish line, the track kind of begins a turn. So what that's telling you is that your corner entry to turn 1 is pretty long. It's essentially that last half of the straightaway after the start-finish line. If you stay up next to the wall and try to turn down late, what's going to happen with these cars is they get ridiculously loose, and you're either going to just spin around and back it into the wall, or you're going to chase the steering wheel and chase the car up and maybe nose into the wall or pancake your right side. So you really want to go ahead and kind of get turned down for turn 1 and enter kind of low, and you don't quite want to hug that inside white line. You want to kind of enter near it and let the car ride up just a little bit and then turn it down for your exit under throttle. If you try to hook that white line, what ends up happening as you exit turn 2 is that the car gets really tight feeling, so you put more steering lock into the car to try to keep it off the wall as you come out of the corner, and then it either rides up and hits the wall anyway, or the rear end comes around and you spin down the racetrack. So this is completely different than turns 3 and 4, where you can drive it in a little bit deep, but your main goal is to try to hook around that bottom line if you can. Maybe even half a car off of it, but you really want to try to get low and exit low coming out of turn 4. You'll have to work the throttle and the steering a bit to keep the car under you most likely, but as you exit turn 4, you can try to get the power down. It's okay here if you don't floor it. I found that I'm kind of comfortable maybe being 90% throttle midway through a race, because that lets me keep the rear of the car in check, so it's good and stable under me as I'm trying to enter into turn 1. If you throttle up too soon and you've got the rear tires almost losing grip, when you try to brake and get down into turn 1, it just gets really hairy and it's really difficult to control. Speaking of control, that brings us to our next topic of steering ratio and brake bias. I recommend either a 12 to 1 or a 14 to 1 steering ratio. The 10 to 1, it's really hard to catch the car if it starts to slide around on you out of the corner, and it tends to make me overdrive the nose. So 12 or 14 to 1 is pretty good depending on what you're comfortable with. And brake bias, the default is 68% front, and you can either kick it down to 67 or as far up as 69. Nice. Because the rear of the car is going to be pretty light, and with the way that you use the brakes here, I feel like you'd be okay shifting the brake bias a little bit more to the front, because it will make the rear of the car a bit easier to manage throughout the race and even during qualifying. And I don't think it's going to cost too much speed. Today, as you're taking a look at the qualifying lap, pay close attention to how I'm using the brake pedal, because braking here is very important. You've got to be smooth, and you don't want to be too aggressive on your braking into turn 1, because the car can get away from you. And then into turn 3, too much braking will cause you to lose the nose, and it may actually slide up a lane or two before your front tires catch again, and that could cause some problems. So once you get into the brakes, you want to be very smooth coming off of them, and maybe trail brake even a bit into the corner to keep some weight on the nose of the car. And we'll actually talk more about that point near the end of the video. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the lap now. And coming across the line to set a 19.440. So let's take a look at that lap again, but slow. And I'm just going to slow down the whole entire lap. Since it's a sub 20-second lap, we're not going to see much of it in real time anyway. So as we start our qualifying lap, we go into turn 3 pretty high, and we want to be able to turn down and lengthen that front straightaway as much as possible. You don't want to go up too high though, because the track kind of flattens out in that top lane, and it makes it harder to turn down off of the wall. So you can see here we've started to put the power down, and we're having to work the steering and the throttle to try to get everything to work together with us. You can see that I put the throttle all the way down and have to back out of it briefly to keep the car under me. And as we come to the start-finish line, you'll see that we're already beginning our entry into turn 1. So turn 1, the philosophy is brake straighter, you can brake later. So by taking this line down into turn 1, you're making your braking zone a little bit straighter so you can be more effective and not lose the car. So we enter low and you see the car drifts up just a bit away from the white line, and as we add throttle back into it, it hooks back down towards the white line. So we're almost making a diamond out of this corner, turning back down so we can get a great exit. You start putting the power down, and you have to once again just feel out the car and feel the grip level. As you can see, we even have to turn towards the wall here to keep the car pointing the right direction. Now just past that light pole, once again putting the brakes on with a nice light and smooth brake release pressure. And you want to get right down to this white line. You don't want to go too low and get your tires in the dirt, but you do want to hug this line all the way around this corner so you can exit nice and low and get a good straight run out of the corner. And you can see putting the throttle down, just feeling out the grip level of the car. Gets a little bit loose on exit here, and we give the wall a nice little kiss, and then we cross the start-finish line. So at no point during this lap does the car really feel very tight. It always feels pretty loose. So you just kind of have to be aware of that and not overdrive it. That's one of the reasons why it's better to underdrive the corners than to overdrive them. Once the rear of the car starts to slip away from you, it just kind of pulls the rest of you up the track and towards the wall. And if you'll bear with me here, I loaded up centripetal circuit. I wanted to show the difference of loading the front end versus not loading the front end up at like a lower speed corner, kind of like what we have at Myrtle Beach. So I got up to about 70 miles an hour, and I tried to get the car down on this white line, and then I just let out of the throttle, and you'll see the car kind of hook left. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but see how it kind of slowly goes over to the left because you got more grip for turning. Now we do the same thing, but this time we're going to use the brakes. And because of the way that the suspension and the geometry is set up on these cars, once you get on the brakes with any decent pressure, see it just hooks itself to the left. So in both cases, with just letting out of the throttle and with braking, you are allowing the weight to shift towards the nose of the car, and that compresses the suspension and the way that the control arms and everything is set up on these cars and a bunch of stuff that I don't understand. It compresses and wants to turn left. So that's why it's important to keep a little bit of brake pressure on your corner entry here. If you're braking down into the corner and you just let off all of your brake pressure really quickly, you unload that front end and the car just kind of doesn't hook in quite as well to complete that like mid-corner phase. So if you keep a little bit of brake pressure on, then you keep that weight shifted just a little bit, you keep some extra grip on those tires, and that will allow the car to kind of cut the corner a bit better. Now that you know all of that, we'll do a sum up with a couple quick final notes. So turn 1, brake straighter, you can brake later, and be more stable. So that's your philosophy heading into turn 1. Keeping some brake pressure on will help the car turn so you can trail brake in, but not too much, but you want to be very smooth with how you release the brake pedal so that you don't unspring all that weight very quickly. You drive turns 3 and 4 completely different, so you want to try to hook down to that bottom line. And throughout your race, it's going to get looser and looser on throttle. So you're going to feel like the back of the car gets shiftier and shiftier as you go through your race. And because of that, as you're coming off of the corner and you're on the front stretch, you might not always be full throttle. I found later on in the race, I like to be partial throttle as I'm coming up to the start-finish line because it helps me set my car down a little sooner to start turn 1. If I stay full throttle, it makes me kind of timid to turn in because I'm afraid I'm going to lose the rear of the car. So you can mitigate that by being a little less heavy on your throttle pedal. And there we have it. That is another guide in the books. So thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. I hope you learned some more tricks for the track that you can use this week. And hopefully I'll see some of you guys on track. Let me know in the comments how your race weeks are going. And as always, thank you so much for being here. So take care, have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.